Andy Serkis, trying to redeem his Animal Farm flop, created a movie for Christian conservatives and patriotic Americans, and somehow disappointed both. And yes, today we're going to be talking about Young Washington, a patriotic movie about the founding of America that actually sparked a theological debate that nobody expected. And here's the question that it raises: does God use someone who doesn't fully know him yet? That's the question we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it. There's a scene early in this film where young Washington is in battle. 2 shots fly over him, his horse is shot out from under him, and afterwards the Seneca warriors come up to him and they say that the Creator's spirit was with him, aka non-Christians declaring providence over America's first president. Now, this is shocking for many reasons. If you know anything about Angel Studios, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not a Christian movie per se, but it's also not secular. It admits there's a higher power, but then it also shows that and doesn't just tell you outright. Guys, cinema is back. This is the moment. This is the movie, despite all the controversy, where I can say, yes, this is storytelling. This is not just lecturing. It's not propaganda. Guys, this is actual storytelling. We are so back. Guys, it genuinely defied all expectations. And while flawed, I actually appreciated it in multiple ways. But here's the thing. We need to look at this as unbiased as possible, because I think people, when they went into the theaters, one, this movie came out right before July 4th, which is America's 250th. People thought that this was going to be an ultra patriotic film that was supposed to stir up your emotions and make you love your country, which I hope that it did to a certain degree, but that wasn't the point of this movie. And that audience was actually very disappointed because it wasn't as patriotic as people were hoping. But then you have the other side of the equation that thought that this was going to be some sort of Christian film because it's Angel Studios, and that audience really didn't get what they wanted either. I think this one comment on Reddit really summed it up really well. This is coming from Beastwood6 and said, "Good news is that the movie had nothing to do with faith. Bad news is that the movie also had nothing to do with a foundational patriotism." So there's 2 camps of people, right? There's the people who were really hoping for a more Christian film and people who are more hoping for a patriotic film or hoping that it wasn't going to be a patriotic film. At the end of the day, it was about a young man who had ambitions, who overcame his family background and fulfilled his calling in his life by a higher power, as the movie kind of goes throughout the movie. No one was satisfied with this. And then there was the whole generative AI debate, which we will get into later as well. So let's get into the actual meat of this discussion. Personally, I don't care whether this film was Christian or not. Genuinely. I just want an honest story about Washington that's also entertaining. Early in the film, Washington is asked what he puts his faith in, and he responds to that, "Well, my fate is in my own hands." His mother keeps invoking providence, and he keeps dismissing her. She sees a divine hand. He thinks that his providence is in his own hands. Because in the first act of the movie, Washington is a man who believes in Washington. And then everything falls apart after that. Fort Necessity is a disaster. His early commands are half accidents. The film doesn't say, "and then Washington prayed and it fixed all of his problems." That's kind of a Christian film flaw, to be honest. Instead, it just shows a young man failing over and over and over again. I hope you can see where I'm going with this. This movie did way more than just tell you the truth. It showed you what it looks like to rely on a higher power, on a higher being. And that was the theological issue that nobody was expecting, and yet it's so worth talking about. So moving on from there, the turning point is the Indian prophecy. The 2 horses are shot out from under him, 4 bullets tear through his coat, and everyone else dies in that battle except for young Washington. And remember, these warriors that come up to him are non-Christian. They have a different theological framework. They tell him the Creator's spirit protected him. They can recognize that. That's called general revelation. If you've never heard of that term, there's special revelation and general revelation. General revelation, people understand generally that there is a higher being that exists. You can see that just in nature around you, in the way that people act, in these kinds of things where it's undeniable that something or someone is protecting young Washington. Special revelation is more like direct proof that there is a God who exists, like the Bible and prayer and miracles, that kind of thing. That's more special revelation. That was just a little side tangent. Now you have those 2 terms under your belt if you didn't already know them. Drop down below if you want to explain what those 2 terms are to someone else, because I definitely didn't do it to the fullest extent. Anyways, moving on. There is a moment that separates young Washington from every other faith-based film. This moment, the Indian prophecy, because it's a non-Christian declaring that there is a higher power, that there is some sort of creator thing, God, that is protecting young Washington. Angel Studios made a movie where the theological climax is spoken by people without faith. That is fascinating. So by the end of the movie, Washington has stopped fighting by his own name. He hasn't given a gospel presentation necessarily, and you're not really sure whether he is actually a Christian or not. And honestly, that's the most important thing about the movie. So if this isn't patriotic propaganda and it's not a Christian film, then what is it? Well, I think it's a commentary on ambition. His mother tells him, quote from the movie, "Fight as God's servant, not for your own ambition." And what he does is he does his own thing. He is ambitious for his own good. That's his character flaw that he works through by the end of the movie. And guys, I think that's actually very fascinating in our own lives because his refusal to quit, his drive, is relatable to us. We feel like we have to prove ourselves to the world. We feel like we have to accomplish something in order to find meaning in our lives, but that's just not true. Young Washington was kind of a surprising figure in this movie because I didn't expect him to be so relatable. Because then at the climax, he loses. And Fort Necessity humiliates him. He has to come to terms with the fact that he can't control his own life, that it's not working the way that he's doing it. And then he realizes that there is providence. There is something that is keeping him going, that is protecting him, that is giving him all this opportunity. Guys, it's literally the Christian gospel in a movie that shouldn't have the Christian gospel. Like, this was supposed to be about America's 250th, and it ended up being about something so much bigger. This makes me so happy. I think this is why I am a big defender of Angel Studios. I know so many people out there don't appreciate the studio. I understand it has its flaws, but everything has its flaws. Guys, the things that it's doing well is that it is giving the Christian message and honestly being fair to other religions in a very respectful way. And it's doing the first part, the Christian message, very, very well because it's not telling people, it's showing them. And that is good storytelling. I will keep saying that over and over and over again. But there is one thing that this movie got wrong, and it's kind of ironic, the thing that they got wrong. This movie argues that human beings have purpose, that there is a God that Washington was called by, was given purpose, yada, yada, yada. And then Angel Studios let generative AI create certain parts of the film. You see the irony there? All irony aside, I think I can see both sides, and this is kind of where I land on the whole debate. It actually ties into what we've been talking about today. On one hand, a history movie should show real-life history. I think it was very silly for them, if they did use generative AI, that they would recreate some scenes using an artificial intelligence. On the other hand, movies use blue screens and special effects to do the exact same thing. And if AI is doing it just as well, if not a little bit better, and it's cheaper, like, why not just use AI to generate backgrounds? Like that, I don't know. That's a debate that is still very culturally relevant, which is why I think the AI debate blew up in general. And to be honest, the whole idea of generative AI is still very uncomfortable. However, I'm just going to pose this question. If the background was going to be fake anyways, either blue screen or AI, does it really matter whether an artist did it or an AI did it? Does that genuinely matter for the film? And here's what I keep coming back to. The movie about a man discovering this God-given purpose was partially made by a machine that has no purpose. And that's not a scandal, that's just a question. I think I'm just very, very confused, and the filmmakers maybe didn't think about it that deeply. Maybe it's not worth thinking about that deeply. I'm not exactly sure. All I do know is that generative AI is a touchy subject that probably should have been left on the computer and not put in the film. But that's just me. Actually, it's not just me. That's most of the internet. But after all that, the controversy, the providence, AI, what do we actually walk away with this film? I think something that this movie teaches us is something that both Christians and non-Christians alike can take away. So whether you don't believe in God or you do, this is still for you. One, the Creator does not wait for us to have perfect theology. And again, there is a God. I think we can admit to the fact that there is a God and he is active in this life. He uses us for his purposes. That's something that we can all take away, whether we agree with it or not. And three, you and I are a part of that grand narrative. We are the instruments of God. That's pretty cool. What that looks like varies depending on the person, but it is true. Young Washington was a portrait of Providence working through a man who doesn't fully understand what's happening to him. And that is much more honest than any sermon could ever be. I hope that that instills some hope in you, because if God can use a man like Washington, then he can use a whole lot of other people that are way more qualified than that man. So I want to know, when you walked out of theaters, did you think that this was going to be a faith-based film? Did you not? What were your expectations going in, and what are you thinking now that you've walked out and have seen the movie? I'd love to hear about that down in the comments. Again, like this video, subscribe if you want more content like this. I got plenty more videos down below. My name is Ethan Wood. This has been Cut the Crap. I will see you guys in the next one.